There was a time, not so long ago, when we simply weren't. When not one of us was even a gleam yet in our Father's eye, as the expression goes. The atoms that would someday be our bodies were strewn at random here and there around the universe and on planet Earth. And the only person who'd ever even imagined us was God. When at last we did begin to be, we were smaller than a fly speck. So small that we could be seen only with a microscope. If we'd have been conscious in those first moments of our lives as a couple of microscopic cells, a real microscopic human being, you may be sure we wouldn't have believed that someday we'd become the complex creatures that we are today. We couldn't have imagined that. And yet here we are, marvelously made, beings capable of love and friendship, of running and laughing, makers of music and poetry, builders of great buildings and lovely tiny gardens, and oh, so much more, all from a few microscopic cells. A miracle? Yes, but not a completed one, for there are parts of us that are still missing, parts that are damaged and some that are just not right. We're rather like a painting that an artist has been struggling with for years. The painting sky is so perfect that it glows. Its trees are starting to take shape rather nicely. But there's a slash in one corner of the canvas where a jealous model took her revenge. And the center of the canvas, well, it's just sort of blank and messy, painted and then rubbed away many times over the years. Because the artist, that's you, can't get the central figure right, which is also you. How like that painting we are. Glorious, but flawed. Promising, but damaged. Wonderful, but seriously incomplete. Will we ever come close to completing our great work? Will God's kingdom ever come to full flower in us? You know, we hear about God's kingdom, and quite often when we hear about it, we think that's something out there somewhere. Or when we hear about God's kingdom, we think it's something in heaven. Well, both of those things are partially true, but not completely true. Jesus also tells us that God's kingdom is within, in you and me. And it's within our hearts, our spirits, our souls, something we have to nurture and maintain along with God in order for it to flower and flourish, in order for that painting to become the masterpiece God destines it to be. For most of us, imagining and hoping for such a thing is just about as difficult as it would be for a few cells to imagine they could grow into a human being. Because we find it so hard to imagine and hope for the wholeness, the holiness, wholeness meaning holiness, that God wants for us, Jesus gave us Sunday's parable about the tiny mustard seed that grew into a beautiful tree. He's assuring us that God has already put into us everything. That is, everything we'll need to grow into the great persons He destined us to be. Even if what's inside us seems very small and oh so insignificant, He's saying it's enough, for He can make it grow. Even if all our past labors have yielded little fruit, He's saying He can make it grow, if we let Him. If we remain flawed, damaged and incomplete to the end, it won't be because we had no alternative. We have to let God guide that paintbrush. As we try to paint our own masterpiece, let God take your hand and guide that brush. If we remain flawed, damaged and incomplete due to the end, it won't be because we had no alternative. Rather, it will be because we dared not hope. We dared not hope that a mustard seed could become a tree, and dared not dream that God's kingdom would come within us. God has big dreams for you. Dream big with God. Let Him take your hand. People who are truly God's people have great dreams, and their dreams come true because they know with a powerful inner certainty that for those who love God, all things are possible. And for those who love God, all things work for the good.